My name is Victoria Rico, and I chair the George W. Brackenridge Foundation, which is a small foundation in San Antonio, Texas. It's a foundation that is solely devoted to education. I'm an attorney, and I really got into this work because I was asked to be a trustee for the foundation and really began to learn about public education and the challenges and the opportunities after I took that position. I believe it was late 2011, I co-founded a harbor master organization called Choose to Succeed, which was really designed to help support the growth of high-performing charter operators in San Antonio, and it was an offshoot of a project really that was created in the foundation community in San Antonio to help recruit and support these high-performing charter operators as they came to our city. Somewhere along the way, I went for a site visit to KIPP, and it just really excited me. Just the level of classroom instruction was amazing. I loved the chants. They let the students do the tours and listening to the individual students talk about their school. It was clear that something very special was going on in KIPP San Antonio, and then I saw Waiting for Superman, and for me, like I think a lot of people, that was just a life-changing moment. And what I learned from Waiting for Superman was that there are more like this out there. KIPP is not the only one. There were it featured high-performing, replicating charter schools from around the country, and that was news to me. Shortly after that, two guys met in a bar, and one of them was the attorney for the Brackenridge Foundation, and the other one was the chief growth officer for a high-performing charter network called Idea Public Schools. And I got a call from our attorney saying, hey, Idea Public Schools is looking to expand outside of the Rio Grande Valley, which is the southern part of Texas. And I know you're interested in charter schools. So I called Idea up and I said, I know you've never heard of me, but I'd really like to see your schools. And went down to the valley and just had the most amazing experience. We got in an Idea school bus at the airport and went to see some of these campuses. There was an International Baccalaureate campus. It really just beautiful, beautiful schools. I mean, order and joy and high level of instruction in the classrooms, and they were growing very fast and very efficiently. So I put in a pitch for them to come to San Antonio, and so Idea and KIPP actually, and this is typical of the charter movement, they introduced me to other high-performing charters in other places that I might be able to talk to about the possibility of them growing schools in San Antonio. I think that's really how it began. It just was, it sort of spread through introductions from one high-performing charter to another, and also these wonderful people at the philanthropy roundtable who will take foundations on tours of charter schools and any kind of high-performing school. Sometimes it's hard to believe it's even possible that it's happened, and we have 21 now in the portfolio, and more growing every year. I meet people whose kids are in these schools, and they're people who I've never met before, and children I've never met before, and it's just amazing, especially because so many of them are very happy. So I've gotten to go to a lot of ribbon cuttings, but I think the most exciting thing is when I just meet a kid or a family who happens to go to one of these schools or is on a wait list for one of these schools, and knowing that we helped to build that, and not only that, but there are going to be more next year. We're really 5 years into this project, and there are so many people who I can point to and say, but for that person, the school wouldn't have happened. And a lot of them are philanthropists or foundation staff, but some of them are elected officials. But I think that initially San Antonio was one of the cities where it was really a funder-driven effort to begin with. And it was the Brackenridge Foundation for about 5 minutes, and then Ewing Halsell joined, and then the San Antonio Area Foundation, and really there have just been a number of fantastic philanthropic organizations who have gotten behind this effort. And then, you know, and as it happens in any community, it spreads outside of, you know, from person to person. My advice to a city that is trying to do what we did 5 or 6 years ago, I think first and foremost, the philanthropy. It really, in most places, like in Texas, public funding is not enough for charter schools. It's typically lower than it is for traditional public schools. And so while it should be enough for a school to operate once it's up, it's typically not enough for it to get started. So I think having the philanthropy lined up is probably the most important thing. But unfortunately, there's a lot more to it. We found that it's really, really important. In Texas, it was really important to help operators get charters. It's a very long and laborious and risky process, and it doesn't work very well if you don't show the chartering decision makers, especially at the time we were doing it, that this is a community-driven effort. This is not an invasion of out-of-state charters. These are people who were recruited to come here, and then there are just 100 little obstacles to charter growth anywhere, whether you recruited them or not, and it really, really helps for people who. I think funders actually are in the best position to do this, but any community leaders are in a good position to stand up for charter operators and should do that publicly. I've been really surprised at the traditional public school, the education establishment, and how it's responded. There's been, in the teachers associations, which are kind of, we don't have teachers unions, but these are kind of affiliated with the national teachers unions. I've been really surprised by how they've responded. Every time we've had a high-performing operator up for a charter at the public hearing on it, an attorney for the teachers association would stand up and express that they were concerned about this operator coming to Texas, and I didn't see them doing that about startups that didn't promise to be so good. It was really the great ones that seemed to draw this concern, and that was mind-boggling to me. San Antonio's, the demographics of San Antonio are what the United States will be eventually. We are majority Hispanic. We are basically what Texas will be in a few years, and Texas is what the United States will be in a few years after that. And so it's an interesting place to see how charter schools work, because this is the population that the United States will eventually be. We are not the most poorly educated city in the United States. I don't think we don't compete with DC or New Orleans as they were before charter schools for the worst public education, but it is in no way sufficient to prepare our students for the 21st century economy. If you look at the ACT or SAT standards, how are our children prepared? Are they college ready when they're getting out of high school? When I looked at the number of 9th graders and then the number of college-ready 12th graders 4 years later, it was about 10 or 11% of them. And I don't know that that's the perfect way to look at it, but it is shocking that you have about 1 in 10 kids who are in 9th grade 4 years later not being ready. I mean, are ready, only 1 in 10 ready for college. And of course, you know, we have an economy that's going to require 1/3 of our kids to be college educated for new and replacement jobs. 2/3 need to have at least some higher education, and we just weren't producing that. The schools we recruited do get most of their kids to and through college, so we see this as a way to help address that. I went recently to a basis 6th grade class, and the 6th graders, they were in a chemistry class. They take biology, chemistry, and physics starting in 6th grade. The 6th graders were balancing chemical equations. They were calculating grams per mole. And I did that as a junior, I believe, in high school, barely. So I'm watching these 6th graders at basis calculating grams per mole. I got to meet with a few of them afterwards. They had older siblings in high school, and this was in a reasonably good district. In a traditional public school, high school, honors chemistry class, their older siblings were doing less sophisticated work than these 6th graders at basis. And this is what it's going to take. I mean, the difference between the kind of education we need to provide and the kind we're providing today is about a 4-year difference. We need about 4 years worth of extra education and a K-12 experience. So when I see those 6th graders at basis, I know we're providing that. This work is hard, and it's really hard to avoid learned pessimism, because we lose so many bureaucratic battles. We lose so many little political battles. Even though we have 21 schools open now, there are 12 that should have been that aren't here because someone made a bad decision that we couldn't fix, or we didn't work hard enough. So it's hard, and I think it's hard for any community that's trying to build high-performing charter schools, because you see all of these losses. And the place I go when I feel like, why am I doing this, is KIPP. And KIPP San Antonio has this wonderful founder leader, Mark Larson, and he lets me go and talk to KIPPsters when I need to. And I meet these kids who are just, they're living under a trampoline in a park, or, just it's incredible stories. And they're going to go to college, and that's why we do this. I think something that's interesting to me, that maybe not to anybody else as far as I can tell, but I'll run it by you, is the data. So when we were starting, figuring out what high-performing charter schools actually do is very complicated, because we had these lottery-based studies, and like, holy moly, they're closing the achievement gap in 4 years, right? But the thing is that those were all in Boston or New York, or they were all somewhere else, and none of them had Texas schools. And but we cobbled it together the best. I did. We cobbled it together the best I could, and it looked like. This looked like the cure to cancer, and I'm borrowing Roland Fryer's words there. But now, Stanford University Credo Center has come out with its analysis of state by state, community by community, and even CMO by CMO, like looking at actual charter operators and how much value add is it? Are they creating? And they've helpfully converted it to days of education per year, and we were right. This kind of cobbled together understanding from these lottery-based studies and ACT and SAT scores, we were right. We are looking at, KIPP San Antonio is providing over 100 extra days worth of learning a year in math per year. Idea is, each of them, they're all over 50 extra days per year of education and reading and math. And when you add that up over a 13-year education, this is really transformative. To me, that's one of the great stories of the last 5 years is waiting for Superman was right. These schools are really getting it done.